Hello guys, welcome to Ask Raghulan. So today we're going to see a bit about GFC 2020. So it's not yet confirmed, so we don't have to panic about it. Just few list of jobs which are considered safe during recessions and jobs which are generally at risky end. So that's all we're going to see. Alright, so just a little piece of advice. Don't need to spread panic, which is not going to be good for the economy anyway. So just take this as a learning lesson and then see if you can help yourself during tough times. So that is all we could do. And especially economy is always goes ups and downs. So the downs doesn't mean it's always bad. So when it comes back again from the downs, generally we'll have a lot more opportunities, so we can catch up quite hard. So this is all about it. So now let's quickly run through some of the jobs which are generally considered recession proof, or sometimes people consider these jobs are to be on the safer end. So that doesn't mean that people in these jobs will not have any issues during any economic downturns. Any job, any profession, any type of field, they will always feel the heat. And so this is common because there will be lots of fund cutting by the governments, large companies, and consumer segment spending reductions. So a lot of these things come into play. So we can't really say that this is safest, but this is considerably safe compared to the other jobs which I'm going to list it up here. All right, let's get through this. So the first thing I'm going to look into the financial services. So during these times, people tend to spend a lot more on their accounting services to make sure that they are trying to save as much funds as possible. So these sort of professions, if you're an accountant or an auditor, generally you tend to get continuous work from people, and you should be fine. But remember, these are the times a lot of small businesses close down as well. So you may not be able to get business if you're dealing with a lot of small businesses. So that's one thing. And the next thing is a medical. So medical profession will always on demand because everyone will get sick and we need medical attention. So the areas of higher dependability comes from the little ones and the elderly ones. So the pediatrician, specialty care, and pediatric care, elderly home care, and transportation for the disabled. A lot of these areas, they will tend to survive because the demand, it's inevitable. People need those services irrespective of what the economic situation is. So those areas are very good. And main thing is the nursing. So if you belong to nursing profession, generally you should be fine, because irrespective of which field of medicine it is, like say most of the generically practicing nursing people tend to get jobs around these spaces, so it should be fine. So next one we're looking at is law enforcement. So law enforcement will always have some demand. During the times of a recession or downturns, the employment opportunities generally gets reduced, and so the unemployment rate will be higher. So whenever there is an higher unemployment rate, there will be crimes. There will be more crimes because people need money to survive, and they tend to take the shortcuts. So that happens, and that's a time when the law enforcement can kick in and they can do some job. So law enforcement doesn't mean it should be a government job such as police and armed forces and things like that. It can be private guards guards and private security forces as well. So these also generally get to see a little boom in here, and a lot of demand will be around this space. And the next one is public utilities. So most of the urban areas depend on public utilities to run their day-to-day activities and operations. So if you belong to any of these public utilities such as electricity, water, sewer, waste, recycle, these areas, you tend to continue as it is, because the population is going to keep growing, so that it's not going to come down. So the amount of garbage that needs to be collected, and the fixing of waters and distributing water, electricity, these things are not going to change. So this will continue to work in the same way. So we're not going to see too much of job cuts around those spaces. And so next one is education. So most of the Asian countries generally tend to spend and give priority towards education, irrespective of any of the economic situation is. But during economic downturns, they tend to give more focus on career training and upskilling and basic educational training and personality development, a lot of these courses. So most of these courses, people tend to start investing money and time into over it in hopes that they will get better jobs, better opportunities during these tough times. So education wise, if you look at it, I have segmented only two sections here. One is schools, which is just the higher secondary level schools, and another one is the UG programs. UG is like undergraduation, so I have not included the post graduation or research levels. The reason being is during economic downturns, people tend to spend for basics, which is school and undergraduation, whereas for post graduation, people tend to hold it off until they get some enough funds or steady jobs and things like that. So if you are a school teacher, or if you're doing if you're doing working as a lecturer or professor or part time or casual, you should be fine generally, because there will be more influx of students who are intending to attend these programs, so they should be fine. And then tech. So during the last recession, which is 2008, it's not a very big recession, but during those times, tech jobs do get affected, and that's because during those times, people were not too much indulged into technology. So people were not depending on technology as much as they do now. So now it's almost 10 years now. So if you look at it, everyone has got a mobile phone, which is smart, which is a smartphone, and it has got a whole bunch of apps, and everyone depending on apps to do certain things in a day-to-day activities and life. So now the dependability of technology, the convergence, and so most of the jobs, even irrespective of what the field you're from, either it's fashion, engineering, avionics, anything that you deal with, people need technology. So the demand for technology, such as software writing or hardware, IoTs, especially the invent of IoTs, there is a whole bunch of devices that we are using without even noticing that they actually need, that we are depending on them, such as, let's say, smartwatches and these kind of stuff. Even though we don't give too much importance to it, but we actually tend to listen to them. We tend to listen to their advices, and we tend to give and get feedback from them. So people tend to use these things quite often. So let's say someone who's like fitness freak, and they actually use these Apple Watches or Fitbits and things like that to monitor their progress. And if it gets old, or if it's get issues, they're going to get another one. So they're going to keep using it. They may not be really something that is inevitable, so they can live without it, but it's just that it becomes a sort of like a habit as well. So that is why most of the tech jobs, they're going to be doing good. And especially during these times, people tend to start trying to digitize things, try to automate things, because most of the small companies, even the large companies, try to get rid of their redundant workforce and bloated workforce as well. So they try to keep the workforce as compact as possible. So during these times, they tend to automate a lot of those things, and especially the areas where they're struggling or spending more money with little returns are coming back. So those are the areas they generally tend to focus on automation during these areas. And so next one is online sales and online marketing. So during very good economic times, you would see a lot of billboards and a lot of retail stores and things like that. And whenever there is an economic downturn, you would see that billboards don't appear that often, and the same with the TV ads as well. And the next thing is your retail stores. You may not really see a lot of retail stores. They tend to close it down because of poor sales. So because people switched over to online sales, they tend to get it from eBay or Alibaba or any of these guys. So it's just because it's a bit more cheaper, and they don't have to spend money to go and get the items and get it shipped and all this kind of stuff. So that's one of the things. So next, if you look at list of jobs generally which are at the risky end, number one comes under is construction and supplies. So the reason being is most of the large construction projects and the large engineering consulting companies which depend on large construction projects, they tend to get the jobs from the governments. It's all government tenders, large construction jobs or government tenders. So whenever there is an economic downturn, governments tend to put hold on most of the construction projects, which they think that it is not mandatory to continue working on those ones at this point of time. Because if you look at it, if let's say if there is a flyover or a underground tunnel, any of these ones, and this is gonna just improve the existing traffic conditions. It's not a showstopper. So what generally people do is they want to save funds for more essential things such as utilities and things like that, and then hold these projects off until they have enough funds to proceed with these ones. So when these projects goes on hold, there are large companies which actually depend on these kind of projects, and who employ thousands of people to deliver these projects. So those projects will affect the people who depending on these projects as well. So that's the main thing. So the people who get affected is the construction, directly on the construction side of things, who's like builders and stuff, and then architects, and then consulting design, civil and structural design companies, and mechanical design, a lot of these guys as well. And supplies include a lot of these raw materials, which includes cement cores and grades, and other materials which is generally required for the construction industry. And the next one is home furnishing. People still consider home furnishing as a luxury because people can live without it, and so that's one of the things which get trimmed in the house budgets very quickly. So when two people are working in a home, and then when one of them loses a job, the first thing they tend to cut is the luxury items. So the first thing that they generally cut is home decors, which generally, if they want to have some home remodeling or kitchen remodification or any of those things they want to do with the homes to make it beautiful, they tend to keep those projects and those things on hold until they get some funds or get some stable jobs and things like that. So the things that they do get affected are the interior design works, decors, and retail sales such as lightings and floor carpets, and a lot of these areas is one of the areas people tend to spend a little. And then auto dealerships. So this is another thing. So even in every part of the world, irrespective of what the economic situation is, people do still consider the cars as non-essential items, and unless and until it's directly relevant to your work that you do, let's such as transportation or delivery of goods and things like that. But other than that, people still consider cars as a luxury item, because even without cars you can literally survive. You can use public transportation such as bus, trains to commute every day, and it would work out to be cheaper, at the same time a little bit stress-free as well, and saves time. So considerably, if you see, they are more efficient compared to cars as well, and cars do cost you expenses. If you're buying on finance, you have to pay the monthly returns, EMIs, and then you have to take care of the services and fuel and a lot of these things as well. And so car dealerships tend to get bit of heat. So you can see a lot of the car dealerships tend to close the gates, and a lot of people might lose their jobs on the retail sales. And apart from that, productions as well. So if you look at the car productions, if there is too much of supply and the demand is too low, then the production generally stops as well. So a lot of these manufacturers tend to put hold on production, and so the jobs, people who work directly under these areas generally tend to get affected very, very often during these times. And then the next thing is the spares and accessories. So this is another area, just same as your home furnishing. So people don't want to spend on top of these cars to add some bells and whistles at this time. So that's another area. And then tourism. So tourism is like, obviously people can't take a vacation when there is no job for them, so they tend to stay away and want to save some cash. So the three main areas is, one is travel, another one is cruise, and then accommodations. So if you look at last recent years, there has been quite a bit of investment into the accommodation segment with Airbnb and OYO, and a lot of these guys who have invested quite a lot into accommodations, while they actually were expecting the growth in the business segment. So business travel, that's what their primary focus is, but tourism is also another big focus for them. So whenever there is a cash crunch, when businesses don't want to travel to do businesses, and then the tourist people don't want to travel because they want to save some cash, and accommodation is the very first industry in the whole of tourism generally get affected, because the bookings generally comes down, and people will be struggling to maintain these properties and stuff. And then another most important thing is printing. So printing has come down quite a lot from the year 2000. So if you see a lot of those work which was printed as on paper, now we don't do it. Even newspapers don't come on paper anymore. So that's one of the main reasons. A lot of these e-magazines gone away. Regular magazines, paperback magazines gone away, and they become e-magazines. So during the last recessions, people, the very first thing they want to stop is printing, because they don't don't want to spend on printers, because sometimes it do cost quite a lot. And if you're printing for an office of 500 people, 400 people, when they start printing quite a lot of papers, and it costs the paper, electricity, the maintenance, and the inks, the cartridges, everything. So it costs quite a lot of money. So so one way the recession generally does good is it tends to stop some of those age-old practices which people are very reluctant to change. So the main thing that these recessions generally changes people dependability on paper. So that way it actually saves, it's actually good for the environment, because people are not going to cut as many trees as they were cutting before. So if there is another recession that's coming on the way in the next year or something, that would be one of the areas people are going to go even harder and see wherever they could actually digitize it, wherever they could actually make the transaction through digitally, they're going to do it, and they're going to stop using paper as much as possible. So yeah, so that's all for today, guys. Hope you liked it, and if you like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And thank you once again. Thank you.